Off-Grid Ireland is delighted to welcome Sid and Mouse to the chat tonight. We're going to be talking about on bunreaćt, and I'm also including one of my admins, Meadow, onto the chat. So welcome to Off-Grid, Sid and Mouse.
Thanks very much, Pierre.
Thanks for having us on. I appreciate it.
Okay, well, look, you know,
not at all.
To be honest, we're just going to go through a few bits and pieces, starting from 1916, basically up to more or less present day. So we're going to go from 1916, the proclamation, the founding document of the Irish state. From 1919 to 1921, the minutes of proceedings of the first An Dáil and Declaration of Independence and Democratic Programme. Then from 1922. Or 1921 to 1922, with the minutes for the Treaty, Irish Free State Constitution, and the 99-year leasehold. Then on to 1937, the first draft, the 1st of July draft, bunreaćt for approved by Dáil. Then the 29th of December 1937, there was the An De-jure, original provisional Irish Constitution, which is known as the rule of law. And then 1939, we will go through the 2nd and 3rd of September, the beginning of World War II, and the Emergency Powers Act, the artificially extended meaning of time of war from Articles 28.3.3 of the Gaelic Constitution. And then we'll go on to 1942, the First and Second Amendment, the next version of the Constitution. 50 articles, the Irish text changed. Then we'll touch on J.M. Kelly in 1961. He wrote a book about the Irish Constitution, about the prominence of the Gaelic text. And again, a bit more of that from 1967, 1972, when we joined the EU, and 1994. There's a bit to cover, we've a lot to go through there. So, I'll let Mouse start you off there, because Mouse is the main man anyhow. So, so I'll just be here as in case Mouse makes a mistake, basically, but I don't think so for some reason.
Thanks, Sid.
No problem.
Right. My name is Mark Anthony. People know me as Mouse. My journey started in this year, really, 2020. You know what I mean? I've seen what was happening. And I'm the type of man that I hear problems and I don't hear too many solutions. So I look at problems and I try and see viable solutions of what we have available to us. So what I'm going to say here is 3 full years of research from the 21st of March 2021. I've lived and breathed this here every day. I've spent an absolute fortune trying to buy the correct literature, which has cost, thousands. And I've tried to come up with what actually happened by reading and coming up with what has actually happened and what we've been told and what we're led to believe. What I'm saying isn't to offend anybody. It's not to belittle anybody or anything like that. It's my synopsis of where we're at. I know in myself who, what, and where I am today. Even though I live in Ulster, Ulster is part of an island and territory called éireann. And I'm a very proud Irishman. I'm also a very proud Ulsterman. I don't recognise the terminology Northern Ireland or Republic of Ireland. They're two acts. They're two acts, as I would say under the current. Sid, could you just hit mute there, please?
Sorry, buddy.
There are 2 acts under the crown, which are known as statelets. The name of the state with the capital S is éireann, as pursuant to Article 4 in the Irish Constitution. It's in all the blue constitutions too. It's also in the preamble in the Irish and English text. The Irish text, I'll read you the preamble as I have it in my head. In the name of the Most Holy Trinity, from whom is all authority, and to whom our final end, all actions of both men and states will be referred. That's the opening lines of the Constitution. So it says, all our obligations, right, are divine Lord Jesus Christ. So it says, we, the people of Era, even in the English language. But yet, everybody in this country calls it Ireland, Republic of Ireland, Irish Free State, the Irish whatever, you know. They call it everything but the official name. And as long as that goes on, well, if you're operating under something else, if you don't know who, what, where you are, well, then you're going to be legislated as something else. And that's what they've been doing. And it's all happened under emergency legislation. Article 28.3.3 of the Constitution. But I'll get to all that, like, you know, as Sid said there was a video that went into your group the other day, and that's some of the literature which I've gathered up. And as I say, you have, we'll start from the start, and I would say you had the proclamation. So what is the proclamation? It's a proclamation of a nation, right? It was the final, suppose, fighting arms of this nation that we declared or proclaimed that we weren't going to be ruled by a foreign power or usurped anymore, you know. We already had 800 years, and we are, as I would say, the children of Eru, the goddess of sovereignty, the land of abundance, you know, the land of abundance. And that's why we're under attack today, because we have everything that they want. And we don't know it. Why? Because we don't benefit from it. But if you read the proclamation, it says no child will want for hunger or shelter. They will look after the old and the infirm. It also opens up with Irish men and Irish women. So the past referendum there, if we removed women, we were going to change the founding document of the state, one of the most historical documents ever written. So you moved on from that there. That was the raised the tricolour above the GPO for 3 consecutive days, and that's why it is the national flag, and it is symbolic of two Christian suppose beliefs as prominent, you know, beliefs of the entire island living side by side. We didn't always live side by side peacefully, but we did pre-1690 or 1968. Protestants and Catholics live side by side in the north. You know, a lot happened in the north, and as we all see, with wars happening across the world at the minute, once wars happen, people automatically switch off because they can't bear to watch it. And I believe that happened between the two divides of this nation. You know, I believe that the North was forgot about, but the North is very instrumental in everything that happens. It has 4 provinces: Ulster, Munster, Leinster, and Connacht. And I always say to people, 3/4 never makes a whole. You're missing a part of the jigsaw, and until that part of that jigsaw is complete again, we'll be able to move forward as a nation. But that's the least of our sort of worries at the minute, because if somebody asked me would I want to join the so-called Republic of Ireland in its current state, after coming through what we've went through up here all my life, the first 20 years of my life, my first vote at 18 years of age was for the Good Friday Agreement. And I voted for it. Why? Because what we were going through before that there, we lost relatives, you know. I have people close to me, you know what I mean, that I lost, and people that lived near me whose fathers were shot and, you know, maimed and whatever, and other people who were killed. And we've as a people have now suddenly realized that there was a lot of manipulation and a lot of collusion, state collusion, both north, south, and in Britain, even with all the political parties. And we're all seeing it, you know, it's all coming out now in historical cases. Freddie Scappaticci, you know, Agent Steakknife, all that, Father Brendan Smith and the Fallers Road, you know, Jerry Adams' brother, you know, that's the name. But if you now were seeing there with Jeffrey Donaldson, you know, and things like that, and the Kincora Boys Home, and, you know, in the year I was born, Lord Mountbatten was blew up in Mullaghmore by the IRA. And on that same day, there was, it was the biggest casualty in British history on British soil. A lot of officers were blew up at just across from Carlingford there, you know, Points Pass or somewhere like that there, I don't know, whatever you call it. And they were all blew up. It went down, you know, it was massive. And they were blew up from the south end of the border, you know. They seen across and they seen them traveling en route, and they blew them up just as they were all in panic of losing the Lord Lieutenant of the royal family, Lord Mountbatten, Dicky, you know, the paedophile, you know, Castle still in Mullaghmore, you know, these lords of the manors, you know. So 1916 that happened, okay. Then we move on. 1918 All Ireland election, okay. It was won by a landslide, you know. So everywhere in the world got that there because it was after the Second World War. We went into a perpetual state of war in 1914, and I believe in my heart of hearts that we have never ever come out of it in this island. We've always been in a perpetual state of war, both north or south, you know. And as I go on, you'll understand more of what I'm saying in that. And because you're in war, it cancels out ordinary legislation and things, you know, rights and things like that. So we've all witnessed that over the past 4 years. It cancelling out your rights, and everybody are, you know, why is this happening? How can this happen? You know what I mean? It's unconstitutional and all. Well, they're doing it under Article 28.3.3, and that leaves them immune from suit, being immune from prosecution. And they know what they're doing is ultra vires, which is illegal. They know the powers that they seek are illegal, you know, to do dictatorial and Orwellian estate, you know. So in 1919, on the 21st of January 1919, we declared the Irish Republic. So we proclaimed the Irish Republic in 1916. We declared it on the 21st of January 1919. And the French tipped their hat to us. So in the minutes of the Dáil, the proceedings there, the minutes, it opens up in Clog Gaelic alone. And I got that translated, you know. I'm not going to read it out, it's a bit long, but you hear of the 1919 Constitution. Well, this has the 1919 Constitution in it. On the opening page of this here, David Wayne Miller actually owned this book. I see his name up in the corner of it. I bought it. Dáil, Minutes of Proceedings of the First Parliament of the Republic of Ireland, okay? 1919 to 1921, official record. So we were a provisional government because we proclaimed a provisional government. What is a provisional government? A provisional government is a temporary government until such time the people give themselves a national policy, which is known as a constitution. And ours is An Bunreaćt, which translates into the primary law. So it's our primary law. We have still common law jurisdiction courts here, both north and south, because we were part of the Commonwealth and we adopted them there. But the rule of law for those is the Constitution. So 1919 went on then, and we know then on the 6th of December 1921, There was a delegate went to 10 Downing Street, and Winston Churchill and the likes of those were all present, and Eamon de Valera wasn't present, but sent a delegate not to speak for the people or make decisions for the people, but see whatever, not to be saying anything, but they went there anyway, and so many of them signed. And actually, one of the signatures, if you actually look it up, it is a fraud, like, because one of them wouldn't sign, and he went out then for a feed, and they played him with drink and everything, and MI5 went after him, and they let him sign for his food, and they took that signature and they put it to it. You can actually look it up and see it, like, you can see it. You can see the square, it's actually ripped out of something and put onto it. If you look up the signatures of the proclamation, you'll find a copy of it. So the Constitution of Dáil was called bunreaćt Dáil, more commonly known as the Dáil Constitution, was the Constitution of 1919 to 1922, the Irish Republic. It was adopted by the first Dáil in its first meeting on the 21st of January 1919 and remained in operation until the 6th of December 1922. So on the 6th of December 1921, those delegates signed that document without the people's consent, after every one of them in the minutes of the Dáil taken an oath to the Irish Republic. And in that oath, it states, I say Mark Anthony, because I'll take this oath now, gladly. I, Mark Anthony, do solemnly swear that I do not and I shall not yield a voluntary support to any pretended government, authority, or power within Ireland, hostile, immiscible thereto, and I do further swear that I, to the best of my knowledge and my ability, will support and defend the Irish Republic and the government of the Irish Republic, which is Dáil, against all enemies, foreign and domestic. I will swear true faith and allegiance to the same, and I take this obligation freely, without mental reservation or purpose of evasion, so help me God. So Michael Collins and Arthur Griffiths and all had taken that oath. It's in the book here. Okay? They missed the day, the first day, 21st, because they were away doing something else. On the 21st of January 1919, the declaration was read out in 3 languages: Irish, French, and English. The French was the French Republic, and they tipped their hat to us. Republic Irlandaise translates the Irish Republic, not the Republic of. We're not the Republic of anything. We are the Irish Republic. It's sovereign, it's independent, and it's got democratic principles. So they took that oath, but then there was disagreements because we had a such thing as West Brits. And they signed that there in Downing Street, and they took it home here. And the story that we're led to believe was, oh, if they didn't sign it, Britain was going to bomb the shit out of us. Now, this was in 1921, in practically peacetime, because the Second World War had just ended. So that was, a pretty fucking false threat from the British establishment. How would the Americans, after the support that we gathered up in 1916 and 1919, all that went down there, and the international relations that we gathered up? Now, we had 2 people in this country, and we've been divided between them, and they're Eamon de Valera. People will call him Devil Era. Well, I'm going to put the record straight here now. Winston Churchill gave him that name. Winston Churchill is the Grand Master of Freemasonry. Winston Churchill probably could be, most likely is, because she had his chair in her bedroom, the Queen's father. He had a great relationship with the Queen Mother. King George V or VI, who was married to the Queen Mother, was a stutter in Egypt. That's why they made a film called The King's Speech. They're an illegitimate crown, as we know. King Edward VIII. I'll get to that there. I'm going to go ahead and so on 1922, I'm trying to keep myself steady here, right? 1922, the 6th of December, 1922, the Irish Free State came into being and the Constitution. And in Article 11 of that, all lands and waters, mines and minerals within the territory of the Irish Free State, Searstat, Éireann, hereto vested in the state, or any department thereof, are held for the public use of benefit, and also the natural resources of the same territory, including the air and all forms of potential energy, and also all the royalties, franchises within the territory from after that date of coming into operation of this Constitution belong to the Irish Free State, Searstat, Éireann, subject any trusts, grants, leases, concessions, then existing in the repeat thereof, or any valid private interest therein, and shall be controlled and administered by the Oireachtas in accordance with such relations and provisions, and shall from time to time approved by legislation, but the same shall not, nor shall any part thereof be alienated by may in public interest, be from time to time granted by way, lease, or license to be worked and enjoyed under the authority and subject to the control of the Oireachtas, provided that no such lease or license be made for a term exceeding 99 years. Beginning from that date thereof, no such lease or license may be renewed by the terms thereof. Article 17 of the same Constitution, the oath to be taken by the members of the Oireachtas shall be in the following form. I do solemnly swear true faith and allegiance of this Constitution to the Irish Free State by the law established, and that I will be faithful to H.M. King George V or VI, his heirs, successors by law and virtue and common citizenship of Ireland with Great Britain, and her adherence to the membership of group of nations forming the British Commonwealth of Nations. Such oath shall be taken and subscribed by every member of the Oireachtas before taking his seat therein, the representatives of the Crown or some authorised by him. And at the back of that is the terms for the agreement which was agreed upon. And there is, let me see here in it. So it says, let me see now, about the mains and all that. I'll just try and get it here now. Irish Free State shall be level. Right, there it is there, article or section 5 of the terms of agreement of the Irish Anglo Treaty 1921, which was brought into being on the 6th of December 1922. The Irish Free State shall assume liability for the services of public debt of the United Kingdom as existing at the date hereof towards the payment of war pensions existing, that the date such proportion as may be fair, equitable, having regard to any just claims of part of Ireland by way and set of the counter claim, the amount of such sums being determined by in default of agreement of arbitration of one of more independent persons being citizens of the British Empire. So that's within that tiny document. I just bought I got a copy of it there. And
Mouse. You want to break that down just a small bit, just in layman's terms, like you know it,
so
I know
it. Say there the 99-year lease there.
Okay.
Right. Fast forward from the 6th of December 1922. Fast forward 99 years, right? So people think 99 years would just cut off then, right? At 19, whatever. It's 99 years, 364 days, 23 years, 59 minutes, and 59 seconds to be precise. And that would bring you up to midnight, 5th of December, 2022. Okay, so that was the terms of the Anglo-Irish Treaty dissolved. So in February of that year, when they all came back after Christmas holidays, you had Rishi Sunak, along with the President of the European Parliament, Ursula von der Leyen, sitting around a treaty table with the Union Jack and the European flag. And Rishi Sunak says, we have just signed the agreement of the Windsor Treaty. Windsor, the King Regius III, Charles III, Windsor. Okay? They just took it to him for royal assent, for him to sign and approve. This was a British Prime Minister and the President of the European Parliament signing terms and conditions for the lease hold of this island for the next 99 years. Now, the DUP see it for what it is, and there, there's times there I can't fault some of the things because they back a lot of things that I'm actually supporting. They're actually more nationalist than what than what they actually would even like to believe. So we're in a term here now where everything is in an emergency powers. So in emergency powers, then they start enacting things. It's the 100-year rule. So you go back to 1920 and 1916. So 1920, 2020, well, you had the Coronavirus Act, bring the world into a global emergency, so to speak. So everything shut down. And everything was cancelled, all constitutions and all. Why? For the public good, for the common good, Well, common good's only legislated in English in our book. It says what is necessary for the benefit of the people as pursuant to Article 6.1 of this constitution, the Irish Constitution. But 1922, fast forward then, that stayed in play with I think it was Fianna Gael and all, they came in then in 1932 as opposition and Fianna Fáil. So the 1922 people realised that it was detrimental to them, that it wasn't the Irish Republic that was proclaimed in the 24th of April 1916 and declared on the 21st of January 1919. And it wasn't what the oath that they'd taken. So who brought this into being? Well, it was Arthur Griffith and Michael Collins were the architects of this, And De Valera and all were saying, no, you have no authority. We all know the story, but you have bits of this and bits of that. Well, who put the border in this island? Who put partition in this island? Well, it was Michael Collins and Arthur Griffith. Now, Arthur Griffith was the founder of Sinn Féin. So who in 2020 and 2022 has taken power in the north and are pretty close to taking power in the south? The 100-year rule. History repeats itself. Agents of the crown. Sure, we've seen Michelle O'Neill shaking hands with the crown whenever his mother died and acknowledging a new king. You're willing to do business with me, I'm willing to do business with you. He says, I believe you're the largest party in the north of Ireland or Northern Ireland. She says, we are indeed. And Alex Maskey was standing watching, and he says, tell Jeffrey that. That's Jeffrey Donaldson, who was standing to Michelle's right-hand side, or left-hand side, because Michelle was now the new leader of this statelet called Northern Ireland. She went to Washington there, and on the 17th of March, she stood up and was probably, I would go on record to say this, the only Sinn Féin representative ever to stand up and call this place up here, Ulster, the occupied 6 counties or whatever. She called it Northern Ireland. I'm a First Minister for all, be it if you're from Northern Ireland or the north of Ireland. They always referred it to the north of Ireland. There is an Irish News article about the two statelets. We'll get that there sent through to you. And Sinn Féin were challenged by representatives of the media whenever they were sort of asking questions back in, I think it was 2012 or whatever, and they were asking them why they won't refer to the name of the state as éireann. Because if you read Article 1 of the Constitution, it would say the Irish nation hereby affirms its inalienable, indefeasible, and sovereign right to choose its own form of government, to determine its relations with other nations through its economic life, political, and culture in accordance with its own genius and traditions. Article 2, the national territory consists of the whole island, its islands, and territorial sea. Article 3, pending the reintegration of the national territory. So in the Good Friday Agreement, which was 26 years ago, there was a so-called national referendum, but it wasn't a national referendum. Two statelets took part in a referendum of some sort. We voted for something up in the north, and you voted for something in the south. We were asked different questions, but the ultimate question was, do you want to remove Article 2 and 3 from the Irish Constitution and let the people of the North decide whatever, And Sinn Féin all were behind that all too, you know what I mean? Because all agreed to it, and they removed Article 2 and 3, so it was in the Constitution, and it remained in the Constitution until 1998. So as pursuant to the Constitution, this entire island was already the republic that was declared, and then it was split up by Sinn Féin, and now Sinn Féin then took out the two articles, and now you're coming back looking ye to have a united Ireland. The name of the state is éireann. You know what I mean? Take out any coinage that you have in your pocket and look at it, and that's the Clú Gaelic. That's pursuant to the Constitution. That's pursuant to the 1919. So, in Micheál Ó Carúil's book, The Translation, which was written in 1999 after the Good Friday Agreement, and it was a literal translation, and it is a study of the text in the Constitution, and they used the 50 articles of the Constitution, which I'm talking about, with the Clú Gaelic script and orthography. Why? Because that is the rule of law, that text. The Irish language is the first national official principal language. If you read the Irish, that's what it says. But if you read the English, it says different. It leaves out principle. It says Sax Burla is only accepted as a second official language. Only accepted. So the influence of politics on the language, the 1937 being very much Eamon de Valera and Fianna Fáil's constitution, as against the pro-treaty 1922 constitution, which had the crown and all in it, must be borne in mind. We shall see below how, as regards both script and orthography, were a deliberate return to the pre-1922 period, taken up where we left off. And it appears that in some cases to be paralleled in the language itself. The Constitution of Dáil in 1919 are given in Irish alone in the minutes of the proceedings of the first session, 21st of January 1919. Now I have that book, that's what I'm referring to here. And this other book here, this was commissioned by the Oireachtas, by Brian Lenihan, and they got Micheál Ó Carúil and a number of other law professors and all to go through this, and language experts and all. And you know, there's so many articles in the Constitution. Their opinion at the end was that nearly every article in the Constitution is completely different than what's written in the English. So when you go to Article 63, Article 63, and this is out of my head here, this is how much I know this book. A copy of this constitution, signed by the Taoiseach, the Chief Justice, and Chairman of Dáil, Éireann, shall be enrolled in the office of the Registrar of the Supreme Court, and such copy shall be conclusive evidence of the provisions of this constitution in case of conflict between the Irish and the English texts, not language, text. The Irish text takes supremacy. Article 52.2 of the Irish Constitution, which should state, hold on a wee second, every article of this Constitution, which is hereafter omitted in accordance with the foregoing provisions of this article from the official text, being the Cló Gaelic, of this Constitution, shall, notwithstanding, that is a massive phrase at law, notwithstanding such omission continue to have the force of law. The 63 article is the copy which is enrolled in the office. It was signed by the president, the first president at the time, and the chairman of Dáil, Éireann, and the Taoiseach, and enrolled in the office of the Registrar of the Supreme Court. That exists there. So everything else that has come from that is a derivative of it, a working definition of it, a colour of it, a colour of law. That's why they give you a blue book. We had a natural book, and on the front page of it, it says bunreaćt in the primary law and text. So bunreaćt na heireann, and that says primary law of and belonging to éireann. And if you take an off the éireann, and use the H, well, you're heirs, H-E-I-R, you're an heir. You're an heir to what? Heir. You're the heirs. We are natural inherent heirs to this island. And underneath it, in all caps, in all of them, it says Constitution of Ireland in brackets. Now, I have the Chicago Manual of Stays. It's also an Oxford Manual of Stays. And it is the writer's, editor's, and publisher's choice. So the likes of your politicians, the likes of your world leaders, the likes of your media, the likes of writers, all those publishers, media editors, newspapers, all that, they all study this because it's language. And anything that's spelt in all caps without hyphens in between it is known as what is ASL, D-based Latin. It is a signed language, which is not a written or spoken language and should not be classed as such, because it can have different meanings in different geographical scales in the world. You have ISL, which is Irish Sign Language. You have BSL, British Sign Language. You have ASL, American Sign Language. So those signs have to each be translated into the English language. Somebody does the sign, then somebody translates it into a spoken language and relays that to somebody else. So anybody that reads that, they look at them as illiterate. So all your bills and all that come through your door and the wee windows says Mr. Well, let no man put titles upon you. I'm not a Mr. I'm a man. Mr. Men, Mr. Soft, Mr. Long, Mr. Happy, Mr. Sad, a fictional cartoon book, you know, Mr. Men. I'm not a Mr. Man. My name's Mark Anthony. I'm an Irish national. I live in a republic. The name of that republic is éireann. It's sovereign, it's independent, and it's got democratic principles based on international relations. We've got international law. We write our own law here. We choose our own form of government, you know. So 1939 was the beginning of Second World War. 2nd of September 1939. It was a Saturday afternoon. And the Dáil was called emergency meeting. They all went in, and then they proceeded from about 3:15 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And this went on to 4:15 in the morning. And what they were legislating for was emergency powers, the Emergency Powers Act. And the words that were said at that time. So just think what they done during COVID and then apply it these years later. They go in there with all the shock and horror and looking everybody to agree to it so they can bring in emergency implementations, which is an artificially extended meaning of the time of war. As pursuant to the Constitution, it was only written in English text alone, the First Amendment. Therefore, it cannot be law because it has to be written in both texts. And the Irish text takes supremacy if there's ever any conflict. So where do you get the conflict here? How do you do this? It's fraud. That's the first point of fraud. Okay. They knew that we were sovereign and independent and they would have done anything to get it back. And I wouldn't be surprised if they started the Second World War to try and get it back because they would put us into an emergency legislation. But in Taoiseach, this here is the First Amendment of the Constitution Bill 1939, second stage. Question proposed that the bill now be read a second time. The Taoiseach and Corlia. This amendment is required to resolve a doubt which has arisen as to whether Article 28 of the Constitution, a time of war, means any except which one in the state is actually participating as a belligerent. My view is that a time of war defined by the Constitution or in the Constitution covered an emergency of this sort. An emergency such as we are facing now. However, if we are to get from the Oireachtas the powers that are sought, the bills that are now put before you, it would do no harm to have at any time the possibility of legal action being taken, questioning the validity of any orders that may be issued, on that ground that such powers were not contemplated at the time of the enactment of the Constitution, and that therefore any act that might be taken would be ultra vires, being illegal. That's a Latin term, ultra vires. And that the powers we seek would also be ultra vires. To remove that doubt, we want to include in the phrase a time of war, a time which when an armed conflict is taking place, which armed conflict might menace the vital interests of the state, is now being suggested in the Dáil and may be suggested in the Shannon. That the moment you leave it to a majority of both houses of the Oireachtas to determine a time of emergency of this sort exists, you make it possible for a majority of both houses of the Oireachtas to suspend the Constitution. And therefore, there is nothing to prevent an unscrupulous party with a majority in both houses, Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael and the Green Party, from changing the Constitution even in accordance with law. Apart from normal times, I think it must be recognised that in certain times of an emergency, it is essential for the service of the state and the executive should be furnished with an ample powers to face any contingency that might arise. I notice that an amendment has been suggested that tries further to define a time of armed conflict as a time when a member of the British Commonwealth of Nations would be engaged in war. England's engaged in war or facilitating the war in Ukraine. They're also facilitating the war in Israel. Okay, and as you heard there, we pay for all those wars out of the 1922 Constitution. Well, who's in power? Fine Gael. Fine Gael is the 1922 Constitution. Okay, you seen them standing there at Béal na Bláth on the 100th anniversary of Michael Collins' death, which was the 22nd of August 2022. He was killed on the 22nd of August 1922, 10 days after Arthur Griffiths was poisoned. Why? Because they broke their oath of allegiance to the Irish Republic and swore an oath to the British Crown. And they put the border in Ireland era. Okay, partition. So the British Commonwealth of Nations would be engaged in war. I do not think, however, that would cover emergencies. One can visualize a case in which, let us say, Canada might be at war in the east, and that war might not in any way affect our vital interests. Neither would it be of much help to suggest that because Great Britain, let us say, were at war defending her own interests in the east, such a war might menace our vital interests, even if Great Britain were engaged in a European war. That war might not necessarily affect our vital interest, neither it does, but we're paying for it. But one can easily visualize circumstances in which a particular war might not menace our territory, actually might affect our vital interests. So you're paying through the teeth and all for everything, oil, gas, and all that. Well, we have our own oil reserve and all, and that's off the coast of Cork, and it's seashell oil, I think you call it, and gas, or gas and oil or whatever. And that goes to, I think it's Denmark or somewhere like that there, not Denmark, Norway. Norway is pretty much the same as us in size and scale and population. Well, all them people in Norway are very, very rich, and that's why they can go and do their ski jumping and all that there, because most of the time they're living off our oil and our gas, because our government has let them manage it. So they take it, incorporate it, and sell it back to us at profit. But the government of Norway actually give on a quarterly basis its citizens a share of the profits of our oil. Okay, now that's a fact. I'll go on into that there further later on, but I'll get back to the Irish Constitution. So the Irish Constitution lasted, or the 1922 lasted up until the 11th of December 1936. So if any has ever watched The Crown, I've never watched it. I turned it on one night and I thought, right, I'll give this a fucking whirl here to see what the story is about it. And the opening scene of it was King Edward's abdication on the 11th of December. And he destroyed the crown that day. And that is Article 49 of the Irish Constitution. Because De Valera wasn't as slow as he walked easy. You see, De Valera sees that moment as pursuant to the proclamation and struck for her freedom. And because people says, but it was brought in by plebiscite. What do you want them to do? Did you want them to wait till the next crown come in and go and ask them for his permission? How long can we take our country back? No. He's seen that there's no sitting crown here. He has taken his constitution with him, and this is our turn here now to return the treaty ports and return sovereignty to the people of Ireland. And Article 49 of the Constitution states, all powers, functions, rights, perspectives whatsoever exercisable in respect of Searstat Éireann, being an Irish Free State, immediately before the 11th day of December 1936, King Edward's abdication, whether in virtue of the Constitution then in force or otherwise by the authority which in the executive power of Searstat Éireann was vested, are hereby declared to belong to the people. Article 48, the Constitution of Searstat Éireann, in force immediately prior to the date of coming into operation of this Constitution, and the Constitution of the Irish Free State Act 1922, insofar as that Act and any provision of that and therein force shall be and hereby repealed as and from that date. So, on the 1st of July 1937, the nation went to the polls to a plebiscite is a referendum. You can look it up, like it's the same terminology, right? But people just like to be panicky because they like to hit devil learn and know nothing about it. But they're all Michael Collins experts because the state tells them that Michael Collins is a great man. They made a Hollywood movie, blockbuster movie about it. You know, the British Crown agent who blew up the four courts of Dublin with British artillery under the command of Winston Churchill and British shells, and blew up 800 years of Irish history. So those previous 800 years was the 800 years the Brits fucking tormented us, starved us, and done everything. Well, Michael Collins and all blew that up. You know what I mean? At the behest, he actually agreed to do it. You know, so look, it's all there, like the Battle of Dublin, like, you know. So move on here. 1st of July, the people then went and we adopted and acted, right? That was the day that we adopted. We read the draft bunreaćt, which was presented to the people. Sinn Féin, we have got a draft of it, and Sinn Féin says this is the constitution of Sinn Féin. It's written in Clogilla. They hate to even think of that, like, you know what I mean, that they agreed to that. You know, they're calling De Valera a traitor too. So the British Crown agents are calling De Valera a traitor too, you know. It's ridiculous what they've done to us, you know. Sinn Féin dirtied the tricolour up in this part of the country. I can't put the tricolour out my window. If I put the tricolour out my window, my life would be probably in danger. You know. But yet I can look out my back window and my neighbour, who's got a big house above me, on the 11th night, my birthday, hangs a Union Jack out the window and puts out fireworks and all to celebrate the 12th. The slaughter of Irish Catholics, Irish Fenians, Irish nationalists, you know, at the behest of King William III. But anyway, we'll move on. So on the 29th of December 1937, the operation came into being, the Constitution came into being. It was enacted into the full force of law and remains the full force of law to this day. The reason why you don't know about this Constitution that I have is because there was very little imprinted. Only the aristocrats and the people who would have been in the know would have got a copy of this here. You can't, you know what I mean? I was blessed that I went looking for it and I got a copy of that and the 1942, the next version, on the same night. I got it for 50 quid. I got it out off eBay, half a shop in Wexford. So thank you very much to that man in Wexford for, you know what I mean? And I do believe that the documentation that has been put in my hands since, you have the J.M. Kelly, Fundamental Rights in Irish Law, and the Constitution. Well, if you look that up, 1961, I have even a newspaper cutting here, which I found in the 3rd edition, saying that it is the pioneering piece of work on its subject. 1967, the 2nd edition, it is the standard of law. That's what it says in it. It is the standard on its subject in law. Then you have the Irish Constitution, so that's citations of law. You would have Crowley versus on Taoiseach and everything in that there. So we'll have all that information here. Tell us, okay? 1939, so the cancelled out our constitution to emergency powers, and it's an artificially extended. So then that was the First Amendment. That was then the Second Amendment was on the 30th, I think, of May 1941, where they changed the text to a standardised version of the text, a Romanic font, because of the terms of agreement in 1938 with the British Crown as well, that it was actually because the media and things like that would have had to change the whole typeface and their machinery and all to print this text, okay? So it would have been cost effective, and that's basically how it happened. By 1964 to 66, they totally eradicated it practically from being taught in schools, along with Latin as well, out of schools, Latin Mass and Latin. That was the Feast of the Assumption, 15th of August, 1966. They stopped us burning bonfires. We used to burn bonfires up here for symbolic reasons till Our Lady. You know, this is a Christian nation. This is a Christian nation. What they're doing here, flooding our country here with Muslims, is multiculturalism. It's cancel culture. It's a breach of Article 1. We are the nation. You are the nation. If you're listening to this, I'm talking to you. In the name of the most holy Trinity, from whom all authority and to whom our final end, all actions of both men and states will be referred. We, the people of Eire, humbly acknowledging all our obligations to our divine Lord Jesus Christ, who sustained our fathers through centuries of trial and unremitting struggle to regain the rightful independence of our nation, and only seeking to promote the common good through due observance. So we must observe what's going on around us. Due observance, prudence, justice, and charity. So that, that's the two biggest words in that paragraph. So that the dignity and the freedom of the individual may be assured. true social order attained, and concord established with other nations, do hereby adopt, enact, and give to ourselves a written constitution. Now, it said in the 1919 bunreaćt Dáil that this was a provisionary, a temporary law until such time the people gave themselves a written constitution. And this written constitution is under God, and it makes us sovereign. Our courts are sovereign under Article 5. That's what it means. The courts are sovereign, and coming up now, we have a referendum coming up on the 7th June, and that's surrendering our sovereignty of them courts to one jurisdiction offshore in Europe, and it's very dangerous. It only benefits bureaucrats, technocrats, and things like that there to lord it over you, and it's a patent law. I'll ask anybody in here how many is have patents out. Well, I don't have any, and I'm sure not too many have. And if you do, well done, you know what I mean. But it's not a big thing that Irish people, it doesn't benefit Irish people. So why was this passed in 2013 and they're only bringing it for a referendum now? It requires referendum under Article because it's to change Article 29.4.2 of the Constitution, but they're using Article 29.4.1 of the Constitution to do it. And if you read that, it says and it was with Article 28. Well, Article 28 is the emergency legislation, which is the Emergency Powers Act of 1939 and 1976, respectively, which was the Dublin and Monaghan bombings of 1974, and then brought in legislation and brought in the Emergency Powers Act. You're under that at the minute. Leo Varadkar revoked that there on the 16th of March 2020 in Washington, D.C., when he locked us all down. That was all coming to an end. So then the war in Ukraine started, and then they became, we're sitting there going, you're destroying our sovereignty here, getting involved in that. But they're getting involved in that there because it keeps us in a heightened state of emergency. The shot in the north here, there was a police officer shot, a top inspector. He's still living, but that there put us into a severe heightened tension of emergency here in the north. We are in that, and that's how they can do these things. Stormont will never last. Why? Because it's a fraud. You know what I mean? They're talking here about Northern Irish people being Northern Irish. I can't go and get a Northern Irish passport. I have an Irish passport. You open up page 4 and that there, 3 and that there, there's a map of where I'm from. And it's a very detailed map, and there's no border in it. And the name of that there island is Éireann. Okay, I am an Irish national. I'm from Éireann. Okay, I'm the same as you. There's no north, there's no nordy, there's no nothing. We're one island. We're actually a continent on our own. We've got an ocean to our west, and we've got seas to our which link us to the other continents to our right. We've got the North Sea, and we've got channels and all below us. We've got everything that a continent can provide. We've got all the resources. We have natural gold. You've got the Dalradian vein running from Scotland right through into Ulster, into Omagh, and down into the Tar mines and things like that there. Well, that is the most profitable gold vein in the world. And Dalradian want to rape it. And there is a public inquiry going on up here. We're fighting it tooth and nail. There's better people fighting it than me, but I'm playing my part too. And it is dangerous. They're looking at 2.1 ton of cyanide processed in this island per day. Okay, they've stopped that. They removed that their application, but they refuse to say that they will reapply for that application. Why? Because to process that they're going to have to. It's not an open cast mine. It's underground. It's I think 64,000 square hectares or something, whatever it is, anyway, or whatever. I had the numbers, but it's just not off the top of my mind. Underground, and they want to take that out. They want to build a processing plant up in Greencastle. Greencastle is one of the highest points in Ulster, and this will omit dusts which are harmful. They go into the lung, they can't come out, and they will cause cancers and things like that there. It can release a thing called norms. Norms are natural occurring radioactive materials, and once that happens, the north here, the 6 counties, so to speak, would become a militarized zone. And that would open up the doors then for things called geological disposal facilities to store higher activity radioactive waste. Well, if they release that up in the Black Bog in Greencastle, that can open up a disaster zone, a district, so they could evacuate us, the evacuated people out, so they know how to evacuate people, so they can evacuate us. And then the British, this is managed by Cromworks, which is a UK state-owned corporation. And once this higher activity radioactive waste, you've seen it in the TV there, I think it was Finland or Sweden or somewhere like that, have opened up these things for the first time ever, and it's to store higher activity radioactive waste below the ground. And they want to use us as probably a dumping ground for the rest of the United Kingdom, because the nuclear power seems to be the way forward, if you see what I mean. And we are in a nuclear free state, but the state like Northern Ireland isn't, because it's managed by the United Kingdom. We didn't have abortion up here until 2020. You passed it, I think, 2018. So you've done it constitutionally. Then that gave Westminster the right to legislate it for us and push it in here without any say. So we didn't have a vote on it. We have no vote on it. It's the most draconian forward fucking abortion legislation in Western Europe. We went from so it's an attack on Christianity. It's an attack on Articles 40 to 44 of the Constitution, which is fundamental rights. Fundamental rights are your natural inherent rights. They are protected in the Constitution, as you can use it as a citation of the rule of law. It is the superior law of the land, so that's why they're very important. 2020, they locked us down, so that was an infringement on your personal rights. They told you had to do this, had to do that. Article 41 is the family. Well, they were trying to remove mother and word woman out of it. Article 42 is education. Well, you see what they're doing in the education system. And you have the primary care of the child is the family, and they have inalienable, indefeasible, and sovereign rights to educate their child by whatever means necessary, whether it be at home, in state school, or whatever. It's all there. Like. Article 43, I think, is private property. It could be wrong. It could be 43 or 44. It's one of them anyway. Private property, the opening line in it, man, you see, there's your woman and your man. So that's natural law, that's eternal law, that's the Holy Bible, right? The Holy Bible is a law book, right? That's the dogma that all courts must adhere to. They swear upon it and everything. All justices and Supreme Courts must go by and check their dogma. Does all this here tally in with eternal law? Why? Because eternal law is universal law. It's natural God's law. You know what I mean? We are all inherent of that there. It says it in Genesis chapter 1, 26, verse 26 through to 28. That God made male and he made female, and it was good, and he gave them dominion of everything that creepeth above the earth and creepeth below the earth. So we have dominion. That's not ownership. But while we're here in our spiritual this body mass, we're in this realm here, and we can manifest here things here which are great. So there is a rule of law here, and I'm perplexed as to why people are still arguing as, the 1919's a better one, this is a better one, that's a better one. No, I have them all, and have them read, okay? I have them all, and I can tell you the difference clearly. So anybody that comes out with any of that nonsense, the powers that be are laughing at them. They're no threat to us. But we, with books like this here, can become a massive threat to them. Why? Because we sent 520 recipients an affidavit, a rebuttal, notice remedy, notice jurisdiction, and notice remedy and cure. And the notice, let me see now, where's that at? So what is a rebuttal? A rebuttal is evidence, or argument introduced to counter, disprove, or contradict the opposing party's evidence or argument either at trial or in reply brief. The legal maxim, he who does not deny admits. That's a maxim, a legal maxim at law. An unrebutted affidavit is acted upon as judgment in commerce, equity, admiralty, lex mercatoria, or whatever you call it, lex mercatoria, and public policy. Public policy equals the rule of law, equals the Constitution and bunreaćt, the primary law. An affidavit at law, land, air, and water, so it has jurisdiction within those three jurisdictions, land, air, and water. Okay, law of the land is the common law, the common man, right? The 10 Commandments: do no wrong, harm, or injury, or loss to another man or woman, go free. Okay, if you become a slave or servitude in your mind and think that you can't do things, will you then are only slave in your own mind? I live free as a bird. You know what I mean? Why? Because I have the knowledge of knowing my rights, knowing my Constitution. Now, if anybody turns around and says, oh, the 1937 is not worth the paper it's written on, why did everybody celebrate then the 8th of March referendum? What Constitution were you voting on? It was the 1937. So if you didn't have any credit, if it hadn't any credibility, well, we contradict you of yourself and quite insane to go out and vote on something that you don't believe in. We all seen the significance of removing the mother and all out of the Constitution, and we didn't have much confidence in the voting system. We didn't have much confidence in this year was a make or break to the Constitution. And you have seen the ramifications in the ministers that have failed from it. Simon Coveney has failed. Well, Simon Coveney is the architect of, at the minute, of the legislation for the UPC, the Unified Patent Court. So he stepped down. So what about his legislation there, the March 7th or June 7th referendum, which coincidentally is in the same day as the European and local elections? So yous are getting distracted by candidates and things like that. Why? Your sovereignty. Micheál Martin talked about backward way of sovereignty. Well, this is it here, people. You are relinquishing sovereignty of the courts. The courthouse, the public courthouse, the most important building on the land. Every decision that me, you, or anybody else is taken in a courthouse, where they take your children off you, where they take your house off you, where they award you a claim, where they say you owe them this, that, and that, where you have a custodial sentence, where you must pay this, where you must pay maintenance, where you're fined, where that's where it all ends. Why? Because it's civil. One party says that they refuse to pay, so you'll be brought into court and they have the final say, and you have the right of final appeal. And so everything that's happening at the minute is happening, and it's all unconstitutional, and it's all, we're getting politically exhausted. And come June 7th, it's a very important referendum, and it's if not as important, if not even more important than the mothers within the home. They talked about red herrings, they all threw that out till the side. You know what I mean? We must not get complacent, and we must ride the wave here of what's happened here in this country. We sent that affidavit. We got after the 28-day rebuttal, that passed. So the United Kingdom Supreme Court has written to us, the registrar in the Supreme Court, and given us a wee bit of this, that, and that. Okay, it's all stamped, and on the letter was addressed to we, the people of Éireann. Okay. And it was stamped the United Kingdom Supreme Court. I have it all there, okay? We also, then, Leo Varadkar got a big defeat, taking the woman out of the Constitution. They all jumped on a plane. They went to Washington, D.C. He embarrassed himself by removing the immigrants from around the thing for the rugby and whatever. And he landed home again, and he was home on the 19th, the 18th to the 19th. And out of the blue, he has come out and he has told the nation, and he says, oh, don't be listening to conspiracy theories to that, or why I've went and all that there. Well, he's number 2 or 3 on our list, and that the president would be number 1 and all that. Well, he took sick, right? And then he went to meet the Taoiseach the day of the referendum or the day before it or whatever. And I don't know what happened there. Taoiseach fucked off, came back, and on the 19th, his secretary sent one of our people out of our group an acknowledgement of, it wasn't a rebuttal, it was an acknowledgement, and it was outside the rebuttal date, and it is dated the 19th. And on the 20th, Leo Varadkar came out and shocked the nation and resigned. Then you've had Simon Coveney resigning and the Minister for State resigning. The government, as far as I can see, that Simon Horseboy is just a fucking puppet, and he's put in place there because it's to get his collateral damage. He had already a vote of no confidence. Who else had a vote of no confidence and has a massive vote of no confidence in them within An Dáil and the Senate or Shannon at the minute? Well, that's Justice Minister Helen McEntee. And I would nearly put me whatever on it by the end of the week, Helen McEntee, or next week at the latest, but by the cabinet reshuffle, she'll not have her job. And it's up to somebody else who takes up that position to come in and take up her legislation and push it on through. If they want to make any changes to that legislation has to be scrapped and start from scratch. So the hate speech legislation, so we've protected Article 40 there thus far. It hasn't went away, but we've protected it thus far, I think. We're seeing what's happening in Scotland. The Constitution, people, dictates what happens in this island, both north, south, east, and west. And the longer we go run about arguing among ourselves, this, that, and that, about Michael Collins was great, the Eamon de Valera was great, these people were great, he was a tutor, they're fucking dead. They're dead. They're long gone. 100 years gone, and we hear people in this country still talking about the patriots of 1916. What about the people that died up in the north, right up until 20 years ago? You know what I mean? Are they not patriot dead? Are they not martyrs? Because we all seem to forget all these people and what actually happened in this year, and why it's because out of choice or why you just don't want to look at it through sheer ignorance or whatever. Well, I'm here in the night to tell you that we have done that there, and we are in contact with a few people behind the scenes. All will be revealed as long as we're just going along with what we're doing here. We've got all this here. I can prove it in a court of law. It's here. You know what I mean? The Irish president, actually, people say he's a wee traitorous cunt. He has to operate under the current constitution, which is in there, but he can call out, tell you. So, and when was it? He got an invitation from the politicians in Northern Ireland, so to speak, Stormont and whatnot, to attend a church service in St. Patrick's Cathedral in Armagh. And that church service was to celebrate partition in Ireland, the creation of Northern Ireland. Well, Northern Ireland was created, it was 2/3 unionist majority. It was a unionist state. Well, in 2020 or whatever, we had a census, and now it is not a unionist state for the first time in its creation. So it opens up a lot of things. So the president came out on, I think it was whatever, I'll read this here. The 17th of September 2021, the Irish president rejected an invitation to the 100-year partition celebration in St. Patrick's Cathedral in Armagh in 2021 on the grounds that the initial invitation was addressed to the President of the Republic of Ireland, to which his response was, "I am the President of Ireland," in the English or in the Irish language, which takes supremacy, and Uachtaráin na hÉireann. Okay? He stated, and I quote, "It isn't a neutral statement politically. What you do is you take out all the facts." Well, that's what I'm trying to present to you here now. And that's the things that we do not dispute. And then you can have all your interpretations, your opinions. And then you can do all your rhetorical flourishes on it. But let's be clear as well that in relation, when it comes to other things, that's why doing commemorations is difficult. Because let's say, for example, the Good Friday Agreement, we all want to work. But the treaty, for example, that will arise on the next phase of what we are trying to do. Right? The treaty, for example, he's talking about the Anglo-Irish Treaty on the midnight 5th of December 2022. This was in 2021, like, you know what I mean? The next phase of what we're doing is very different to the Good Friday Agreement. You enter into it with negotiations, you come out of it with agreement. You make commitments, and that is a sovereign subtle. In the other one, you have to look at all the context of how a free people to where they would consent. And you have to deal with it, whether you like it or not, the issue of coercion. So that's why I may express my gratitude for the people of Ireland, who have been saying that they understand that I was taking a complex decision, that they had trust in me. He also stated on the 4th or 5th of May, on the 100th year anniversary of this, he was the first statesman to address this island, both north and south. He addressed us at 12 midday, and he was dressed in his tweed green. And in the north, the Queen should have addressed the people of Northern Ireland, wouldn't you think? But it was Michael D. Higgins. And there was a video played, but he said in this, he also stated on the 4th or 5th of May 2021 that things happened in the past and that the people must recall their factual setting as much as possible. Well, Michael D., we sent that rebuttal and all in that affidavit, and that is a statement of truth, tell you. And we have recalled our factual settings. You know what I mean? We have, and we have the documentation here. So for people to, you know, what is an affidavit? It's a written statement, confirmed oath or affirmation for use as evidence in court. For example, a former employee swore on an affidavit relating to his claim for unfair dismissal. What does jurisdiction mean? Jurisdiction means the authority of power of the court to determine a dispute between parties, as well as the territory over which the legal authority of the court extends. What is another word for remedy and cure? Alleviate, amend, fix, correct, mitigate, rectify, redress, relieve, restore, solve, straighten out. You know, so we have created a website, and that website is given freely to everybody. We ask for nothing in return. I took photos of the Constitution once I got it, cropped it, made it into a PDF, and was sharing it widely in this country for 6 months so it wouldn't be taken out of circulation again. Since I came across this here, we have made a presentation. I see Lawyers for Justice using parts out of it, Article 6.1, which we have always stated. If you look at Article 6.1 in the Irish text, people is 3 or 4 times mentioned in it. In the English text, it's only once. In the English text, it's for the common good. What is necessary for the common good, or for the requirements of the common good. And in the Irish text, it says what is necessary for the benefit of the people. Well, if you read the President's oath, it doesn't mention for the common good. It finishes off, I will serve and dedicate my life to what is necessary for the benefit of the people, the Irish people. Okay, so he is the custodian of the Irish Constitution. Also, as I said on the 22nd of August 2022, there was one noticeable when Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael declared the end of the Civil War, standing on a stage to 30 or 40,000 people, and it being beamed across the world. Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael came together, and there was one absentee who wasn't there, and I never seen him, and that was the president of ERA, Michael D. Higgins. So they were celebrating the Irish Free State and the oath to the crown, and that treasonous Micheál Martin, who is part of Fianna Fáil, and that is a Republican party. Well, they've went, we all know that all the parties have been infiltrated. Sinn Féin even were infiltrated with Mary Lou. She came from Fianna Fáil. So it's all been, and it's up to us now, the destiny of the Irish Constitution does not only depend on the nobility of its contents, but the watchfulness of the Irish people. It's up to us to protect it. It's nobody's to take and it's nobody's to give, but it's up to us to protect it. And what we must all start learning to do is becoming constitutionally astute. They teach it in America to their children. We don't have constitution days. We're running about here and we don't know where we're fucking pumped or stuffed in this country. We don't know up or down. We don't know left or right. And we're all arguing among each other. And we see that it was important enough to have referendums on it. Now, we've seen the significance of the referendums. We wanted to kill the unborn child. We voted for it. They gave us it. You know what I mean? They were looking to take the mother out of the Constitution, and we says, no, you've overstepped the line. You don't touch the mammies. You don't touch the mothers. You don't touch the women, and you leave the fucking children alone. You leave it as it is, as it was set out, and if that offends you, I'm offended, you're offended. It's written and enrolled in the office of the registrar as conclusive evidence of that. So we must all now start coming under an umbrella of some learning the law of the land, because you had Marbury versus Madison 1803, Cranch 173, which was in the United States, and that was Marbury versus Secretary of State Madison. And Madison was trying to impede or infringe upon natural rights or whatever was in the American Constitution, and the Supreme Court struck it down, and that was the law of the land. It proved that the Constitution wasn't just a piece of paper, it is the law of the land, and that any act or legislation which is repugnant to the Constitution should be deemed null and void and nullified. That's Article 15.4 of our Constitution. That is judicial review, judicial determination. And any act or legislation, so acts and legislation are not law. They're colours of law. The law is the Constitution. And if it infringes upon that, we have the right to strike it down in the Supreme Court. And the President has the right to decline to sign it and things like that. You know what I mean? We can take litigation against them on it. It is unconstitutional to try and remove our freedom of speech. It's in the Constitution. You know what I mean? It should be a referendum. It should be a referendum. Article 40.4 of the Constitution is freedom of expression and things like that, It's all there for us. A right is exercisable. So you're born with them. You have them in your pocket. But if you don't know your rights, you effectively have no rights. So ignorance of law, no excuse, maxim of law. So if you're going to be stupid of who you are and what you are and where you are, they're going to legislate over you as stupid people. And we are not stupid people. We built the world. We educated the world. We are the saints and the scholars. We are the jewel in the crown. We are the fucking prize. So it's about time this country came together and realised that we have a powerful constitution, and we've just seen the power of it, and we must get behind that, because that installed confidence in the Constitution, it installed confidence in the voting system, and we have a very important few months coming up here for what way the future of this country. You have the WHO Treaty, you have the hate speech legislation, and you have the Unified Patent Courts. Right? So everybody's all good about saying how good Michael Collins and all that was, and I never ever hear too much about him and De Valera. So I'm going to read something out that was actually the state put this out. So they did. It wasn't. It was RTE actually on a 1982 show 7 years after his death, and it was the life of Eamon De Valera, and it opened up. In the history of every people, there have been individuals whose impact, influence, and personality have set them apart from their contemporaries and earned them a special consideration of all those intent on understanding the great impersonal forces and the divisive events which shape a country's history. Such a man was Eamon de Valera, a man whose towering presence, like that of O'Connell or Parnell before him, presides a great part of the story of Ireland in the first 20th century. The sole surviving commander of the 1916 Rising, the president of the first Dáil, and the leader of the Republican movement in the Civil War against the Free Staters, against the Crown. Founder of the long-time leader of the most powerful and consistently successful political party ever in Irish history, which would be Fianna Fáil, and indeed one of the most successful in modern Europe. European statesman at the League of Nations in the 1930s, and afterwards respected statesman on the world stage. Taoiseach of the state for over 20 years of its first 37 years of existence, and afterwards president for a further 14 years. The name de Valera evokes an immediate and powerful response across the full spectrum of Irish political opinion, from unswerving loyalty to unmeasured devotion on the one hand, and deep-seated bitterness and hostility on the other hand. Furthermore, to the outside world, the name de Valera was almost synonymous with Ireland throughout the middle decades of this or that past century, if not indeed right up to his death in 1975. Irish sovereignty, the independence of our country, were the governing passion of Eamon de Valera. I'm going to read out something else, and then I'm going to bow out and get myself a cup of coffee because I've been talking for an hour and a half. But I want to read this. This was sent to me in 2013. When I had my awakening, I got sober in 2013, and my life changed from there on. And here I am, 11 years on. 17th of this month, I'll be 11 years sober. Everything happens for a reason. Sometimes people come into your life and you know right away they were meant to be there to serve some sort of purpose, to teach you a lesson, or to help you figure out who you are or who you want to become. You never know who these people may be, but when you lock eyes with them, you know from that very moment they will affect your life in some profound way. And sometimes things happen to you at a time that may seem horrible, painful, unfair, but in reflection, you realize that without overcoming those obstacles, you would never have realized your potential, strength, or willpower of heart. Everything happens for a reason. Nothing happens by chance or by means of good luck. Illness, injury, love, lost moments of true greatness or sheer stupidity all occur to test the limits of your soul. Without these small tests, life would be smoothly paved, straight, flat road to nowhere, safe and comfortable, but dull and utterly pointless. The people you meet in your life, the successes, the downfalls that you experience can create who you are, and the bad experience can be learned from. In fact, they are probably the most poignant and important ones. If someone hurts you and betrays you, breaks your heart, forgive them because they have helped you learn about trust and the importance of being cautious of whom you open up your heart to. If someone loves you, love them back unconditionally, not only because they love you, but because they are teaching you to open up your heart and your eyes to the little things. Make every day count, appreciate every moment, and take from it everything you possibly can, for you may never be able to experience it again. Talk to people you have never talked to before and actually listen. I thank you for listening tonight. Let yourself fall in love, break free, set your sights high, hold your head up because you have every right to, and that goes to everybody. Tell yourself you're a great individual and believe in yourself. For if you don't believe in yourself, no one else will believe in you. Create your own life and then go and live it. For me and my other people, God bless. Look, I'm talked out here, but I think I've given you enough there.
Mouse, that was fantastic. Absolutely a wonderful presentation. So much we've learned tonight. Thank you so much. Meadow, one of my admins, just has a quick question. If Sid wants to answer it, just give Mouse a bit of a break there. But Mouse,
I'll
that was
try.
fantastic.
How can I beat that? Like, you know what I mean? But go on.
Thanks, Miles. That was an incredible presentation, as Patricia said there. I just wanted to ask, so we speak an English version of our language and it doesn't resonate with us, even after making it Hibernian. What do you think is the significance of the loss of Clo Gaelic from our language?
Well, the loss of Clo Gaelic is we basically lost our rights. We've lost the law. We've lost what gives us our rights. Like, because at the moment, that blue book will be a book for business. It's not a book of law. It's a book for business. You know, whereas in the real the Clo Gaelic book, it's a book of law. You know, I don't know how to I don't know how to answer that better than that. To be honest, that's the best answer I can give you.
No, that's perfect. That's perfect. Just wanted to have some kind of quick bullet points there because it's new to an awful lot of people and there's a lot to unpack there. That's all.
Yeah. Look, I'll answer to the best of my ability. But look, as you've heard, Mouse is like he's the brains behind Mouse, for like, you know, and most of the stuff that I've learned has been through Mouse's teachings. Like, so look, I will answer to the best I can, but if I can't, I will have to pass it on to Mouse. All right. But one thing that actually Mouse did forget, I don't know if you forgot, but when we sent the affidavit, we sent it on the 15th of January, and by the time it hit Stormont, I think it was the 17th of January, within a week, they were back. Now, I'm not saying that had that exact reason for it, but I just thought it was quite a coincidence, and I don't really believe in coincidences anymore. So,
yeah, but there's a lot of what you could call coincidences. We won't keep you too long, guys. That was an incredible presentation. I'll hand it back over to Peter now.
Yeah, and as Meadow said there, I'll open it up because I know there's a few people jumping at the bit to ask a few questions there. But my main kind of thing is I've kind of two questions here. The first question would be, have you met with a lot of resistance to the work that you're doing and the public speaking, you know, trying to inform the people? Have you met with any sort of resistance? And I don't mean from our side, just in general.
yeah, there's a lot. 100%. In my experience, right, with this book, you either get it or you don't. And if you don't get it, you're never gonna get it. The people who get it straight away. They go understand. It's like something in your stomach, it hits you in your stomach, and there has been a lot of resistance. Like very few of what I would call the big accounts share any of their stuff. If the bigger accounts had started sharing their stuff a long time ago, we would have been a lot further on in this. Like I set up a TikTok account, and the minute I set it up, I had thousands of followers. There's an appetite for it. People know there's something wrong. They just don't know what is wrong. And people know that this is right. They just don't know how they know it's right. If you know what I mean.
And Sid and Mouse, basically, where like, where do we go from here? You know, because like, to be honest, now I'm going to hold my hands up. You know, for a long time, myself and Mouse there, we had some spectacular battles on here, and this is the first evening that it's actually hit me like, holy crap! Sorry for cursing, but you know, like, this is actually, there's something here. Like, this definitely, you know, it's not right. It's not right what's happening in our country. And
No.
do you know what I mean? Like, it really has hit me here. But I'm just wondering, where do we go from here?
Well, obviously we sent the affidavit, you know, and we've had no, like, Mouse
Sid,
has told you. Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry just for butting in, right?
No, go on. You're better at
I'm
doing it than me,
exhausted.
Mouse.
That has just physically exhausted me, for I haven't done that there really, right? And that was all out of my own mind. I wasn't reading any books. I'm looking at the literature around me. It's surrounding me. Even some of them are read out of books, right? Sarah Jane's in there. She knows everything about the affidavit. She drafted the affidavit and all with me. And between yourselves and Rory Bryan and all, there's enough members, valued members of the An Bunreaćt group who are well versed in what we're talking about here. And enjoy, folks, because there's a website, as I say there, www.bunreaćt1937.ie. We'll get the links in. We have pages on the patent law, we have pages on the unified or the WHO treaty, the referendum. We've done a massive campaign on the referendum. My YouTube channel jumped from a couple of hundred to 6,000. I've had in one full year over 1.6, nearly 1.7 million views on our information. I try and not share fucking everything that everybody's sharing. I try and share information which is relevant to us protecting this island. We can run about and shout at each other about this, that, and that. It all comes down to the rule of law. And we've seen that. They can't do nothing unless they change that. Yes, they can use enactments and all that, but they're not law. Therefore, whenever you go into court, you know your rights. You can evoke this constitution under Article 52 as pursuant to Article 63 and all of those articles under the full canopy of laws. Justice will be and shall be administered on this entire island of Eire. On the hand and seal of 33.5.3 or something, or whatever it is. Yeah. So look, it's all there. The people will take it here, all the questions. If you want people, go on there, open up the website, start looking through it and see questions and ask whatever. And if you're stuck in anything, I'll be here, but I'm just taking a wee break here, okay? Thank you so much, PR. Thank you, Gavin. Thank you all for listening, and thanks for the response. I'm not here to shout at you or anything like that. I've had to shout to get heard. I've got information here. I've been gifted with something, and it's my job to bring it to the people. I know I'm protected in doing it. I've faced every contingency. I've faced Sinn Féin off on my doorstep, everything. I've done everything by the book. I remain honourable. I ask for nothing in return. All I want is our nation restored to what was promised us in the Declaration, the Proclamation, and in the Constitution. And we then, we're no point we're trying to reinvent the wheel. It's already there for us. Don't try and reinvent the wall. They're the two things that you don't try and reinvent in life, because they're tested through times. But the blue constitutions are rotten to the core. So what you do is you knock those away and you clear it back and you go back to the beginning. And you say, right, if there's anything else, then as a nation, we can have a referendum. There has never been a proper referendum, national referendum, since the plebiscite in 1937 in this island. So that should be quite alarming. There was only 3/4 of this country ever voted in referendums. The nation makes up Eire, and that's the entire island. So God bless people. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Mouse. You take a break now. That was fantastic. If anybody from the chat there would like to throw up their hands and ask Sid a question there, I'm going to take three questions. And
if you can hear me, I was going to answer a question that somebody asked earlier on, the importance of our language, if you don't mind, PR.
Oh, absolutely, Sarah. Work away.
Okay, so from my point of view, the importance of losing our language, okay, so first and foremost, I suppose we're Indigenous people, and it's very important that we take care of that, especially at the moment we can see that that's falling apart, okay? So that is part of what makes us Indigenous people. And second, I suppose it's enrolled in the office of the Supreme Court. That is the text that is enrolled in the office of the Supreme Court. And in case of conflict between the Irish and the English text, the Irish takes supremacy. So, you know, when they changed our language as well, when they in the late 50s, early 60s, they stopped teaching the clo in schools. They started changing it, I suppose, up maybe in the 70s, they started really, but in the 50s, they were talking about it and that kind of thing. But what's enrolled is important because it is the law and it is what protects us and it is what we can rely upon. And it is there for the day that there is conflict between the Irish and the English text. And now we can use that as our strength because we can see that there is differences in the English and the Irish text, in the two Irish texts also, okay? But what is enrolled in the office of the Supreme Court is important, okay? Because that is the law and it takes supremacy if there's any arguments between the Irish and the English. So that would be my answer to that, I suppose, the loss of our language. Resistance to the bunreaćt thing, I think, to be quite honest with you, it was a lack of understanding. I myself didn't know the importance of a constitution growing up. It was only when we needed to exercise our rights did we really realise. I was out there looking for something to help our nation, and I fell upon this, and thanks be to God I did, because it's the law, and thanks be to God we have it, because Jesus, we have strength in this. So yes, there was resistance because I think that people got it mixed up with other people and maybe parties and this, that, and the other. But we're nothing to do with parties and all that kind of thing. We're just saying to people, this is the law and we can use this to our advantage. And people are now, like I was out doing the no canvassing, and a lady in the chemist said to me, what is the Constitution? Like, what is it? I says, it's our law. It's our actual law. So people have no idea. I didn't myself, but I know that the Americans always grew up talking about their Constitution and the importance of it. So hopefully now, and definitely we can see an explosion of people's wanting to know and to understand the Constitution. Now, where do we go from here? So that's the last question that somebody asked. I think it was you, PR. Right. So
Yes, yeah.
Let me read the very end of the affidavit notice that we sent. You know, the rebuttal letter came first. The affidavit then came second. So first of all, we said to these people in the letter, the affidavit, we are giving you the 28 days to rebut the facts we put before you. And we are swearing on these things. Okay, so the rebuttal letter came first. The affidavit came next, that we swear. We talked about the 1916 and the founding of the state, that kind of thing, that we're a sovereign nation, okay? An independent nation, under God, under no crown or anything like that, okay? So where do we go from here? So we want to correct the jurisdiction. That was the next part of it. And then it was notice of cure and remedy. So there's the problem. How can we fix it? Okay, so that was basically in a nutshell what it was. And the very last part of this says, we, the Irish people, as custodians of the primary national law of and belonging to éireann, declare and affirm that we are invoking the primary and fundamental law of this land, bunreaćt na hÉireann, enacted by the people on the 1st of July 1937 and in operation from the 29th of December 1937. So we have said to the state, we're invoking the Constitution for the sovereign nation, okay? And we are saying that we know what has happened. We've put the facts before you and you've got 28 days to rebut them. So we have invoked our Constitution, and many people have invoked the Constitution by sending in that letter, okay? So we invoke the Constitution. Additionally, we are hereby exercising our inalienable, indefeasible and sovereign right to seek a constitutional challenge, judicial review, and judicial determination on the validity and constitutionality of current legislation and amendments passed which were enacted into Irish law. Basically, the legislation that they have brought in that is repugnant to the Constitution and it is being used against the Irish people. This legislation, acts and statutes, that is not our law. We have natural law, comes from God above, whatever God you believe in, but it does not come from government, it does not come from state, it does not come from crown or priests or none of them. It comes from God, our creator, and the state comes from us. So we want a challenge with regards to the constitutionality of these laws that they're using against us, these legislation, acts and statutes that they're using against us. So we sent this in, we've had no rebuttals, we had certain acknowledgements, and as Mark said, we had a letter from the UK Supreme Court. Now, we follow up for we the people. This is for we the people. This is not for anybody's gain. It is for us, that we have found something that we can use to benefit the Irish people in a state of an emergency for us, because we're an emergency against the bloody state, you know. So we have our law that's enrolled in the office of the Supreme Court, and we can stand there with our sovereign constitution. We want to get to the Supreme Court. Well, you have to go through the High Court, as far as I'm aware, first, one of the courts first. But we need to challenge them about the constitutionality of the legislation that they're using against us. And every issue that people are complaining about and that's coming up and they're distracting us with and all the rest, it's all about removing our natural rights. Then you're not a man or a woman. You're in the legal field, you're in the person field. So if they remove Article 40 to 44, which are your natural rights, what's left then is just the state, okay? And then they can rule over us because they've taken away our natural rights, our right to speak, our right to think, our right to have a home, our right to educate our children, all those things. And we can see that they tried to take woman out of the Constitution. By doing that, they're slowly but surely taking away the natural rights, the natural woman, you know. So I've said enough. Okay, thank you.
Can I
Yeah,
ask a
thanks.
question?
Thanks. Yes, Nancy, go ahead.
Yeah, Sarah, you're saying they're challenged in it. Do we need a challenge in the Supreme Court to get rid of the blue book and go and reinstall the yellow book?
Well, yes, we have invoked the Constitution, and I suppose we want it now enacted and correct the jurisdiction of the country. And we need it recognised, I suppose, by the Supreme Court that that is the jurisdiction of this country, and we have to challenge. I mean, it is recognised that it's the jurisdiction if people know how to use it and stand in court, because it has been done. But we need to challenge this legislation that is repugnant to the Constitution. Do you know what I mean? So we need to stand in that jurisdiction. And we have put facts before them that we know that we are being ruled under that blue book. So I suppose there's a lot of things in there that we're only regular, ordinary people. Do you know what I mean? So we're navigating this. We do have, Mouse is a brain box when it comes to all this law and all that kind of thing, and has complete understanding of it all. So we're taking things step by step. We're just doing one thing at a time, whilst trying to give knowledge to the people. So I suppose we just need to change the jurisdiction and challenge them with regards to legislation. I suppose that's what I know so far. If Mouse or Rory wants to come in, Rory, maybe you want to say something there to strengthen what I said or whatever.
Yeah, strengthen what you said. There's so much, you know, there really is so much, and, you know, all credit to you, Mouse, you know, you were very crystal clean, but quick, and it was an hour and a half of pure, I suppose, enlightenment for many, and even me, and that never fades. So well done, you know, well done. And nobody got called a cunt, which was brilliant. So Yeah, the relation to the text, you know, people know that we're living in a world of two jurisdictions. We're living in commerce, which is the blue book, the crown, who owned all the commerce, and that's the money you spend. That's the banking. That's your pay your rent. You do bills. Everything's done in English text. Roman. That's Roman civil procedure. But because of the Irish text, that's our when you realise you're man and woman, then you're an Irish man and woman. The text is what they call diction. That's the dictionary. That's where jurisdiction originally came from. It's dictionary, so it's text. So that's your man, your law, man and woman. So when you realise these things, like most people do, you still have to then, your company being your fictional you, it still exists. So you have to then manage that, and you do that to the best of your ability. But in relation to challenging in the court, the biggest thing that needs to be challenged is any of the legislation can be challenged, and someone should and hopefully will challenge maybe hate speech legislation or whatever can be challenged, and any of those things can be brought down. And if you look at the history of the High Court and any challenges that have ever been won against anything in court of law has been a constitutional challenge. But the biggest thing for us as a people, I suppose, what we need to do is, okay, we now know we have a written constitution, which is man, woman, natural law, but also the commerce and the crown still runs maritime law. So if we have an appeal, or I suppose a judicial review is the big one that we need to do, and that has to be done on the very First Amendment. That could bring it all down. It's a massive, massive ask, but that's the ultimate goal. So we challenged the very First Amendment, which was the one that put us in the emergency state of war, but it's only written in the English. It's not in the Clo. So therefore, it's repugnant to the Constitution. You bring down the First Amendment, you bring them all down. But I don't know if, when, or even that is ever going to happen. But that is, I suppose, the thing to do it. It exists. Getting back to the text, like Roman civil procedure is doesn't apply to living men and women. But we still have to go look for work in the morning. We still have to go to shops, and we still have to, do certain things. But you can then remove yourself. It's like when you were out during COVID, you could have been your Irish national in that capacity, which is Article 1. And nobody ever stopped me going anywhere. I travelled the world during COVID because I was in my national capacity. All right, sitting on an airplane, I was doing commerce, but on land, I was that. But still, I might get up tomorrow and have to pay a bill, or I might have to do that. I might have to go into a shop. Then I have to manage my citizenship, which unfortunately is UK Crown. But for me, would be, I suppose, educate yourself on what Article 1 is about, first and foremost. As Mouse said, the website is there. I suppose just get a bit of learning of what a constitution is, because, like, I'm not saying this, and either anybody who knows about the constitution is trying to sell anybody anything. Only share our strength and hope, our knowledge, our learning that we've done, and that's all we're doing, because we have proof and evidence that it works. We've done it in courts. We've done it with our affidavits, and it's real and it exists. So the big thing for us is, I suppose, to learn who you are, which is first and foremost you're an Irish national. We're the nation, and we have a written constitution. And if you know your Clo Gaelic version of the constitution, then you're in the jurisdiction. But that doesn't allow you to, not pay bills or whatever if you're using bills. Like, I was in a court, and I won't hold anybody up too long about courts and stuff because it's been a long night. But I was arguing over, I was arrested in the airport and held for a few days on what they said was a speeding fine over 4 years old. But because I was in a portal, they were able to arrest me because I was travelling around from point A to point B around the country without any, attack at all. But anyway, long story short, in the court, I separated myself. This was in Bray District Court. There was people there. I separated myself from the driving licence and the all caps name and all that stuff. And the judge agreed. But at the end of the case, even though he agreed with me, he said, I'm still going to issue a fine. And I said, who are you going to issue the fine to? And he said, to the driving license. And I said, fair enough, I'll ensure it gets paid. So if I'm becoming the man, and I know the all caps and that's part of me still exists to go out into society to survive, you don't have much of a choice. You become the director of that company, so it's up to you then to manage that company to the best of your ability. Otherwise, you're bringing trouble to yourself. So it's that sort of learning, and I hope that makes sense to people.
Yeah,
But
thanks, Rory.
you know, the
Thanks,
constitution is certainly a viable solution, and I'll leave it at that.
Thanks, Rory. I'm just going to finish the recording there now, and I especially want to thank Sid and Mouse for giving us such an absolute informative evening. And I want to thank all the bunreaćt gang for popping on the chat as well and being so helpful posting on our other page. And we want to invite you guys back on again at some point. And I want to say thanks very much, guys. Thanks for coming on again. You were brilliant.